The university campus is absolutely gorgeous, and the town it's a small town compared to Chicago, where I grew up.
It was small town America, but it was also a university town. So it had the best of both worlds. And we all went to the movies. I mean, movies were a big thing. We went to the Princess Theater just like Roger did, which he wrote about in his book a lot. Just a typical Midwestern childhood.
I like college towns, and I like seeing the influence that the university has on the community and the cultural enrichment that it can bring to a community, because things will come to a college town that may not go to a smaller town under regular circumstances.
He was always very proud of coming from where he came from. We both had a very influential period of our lives working for the college newspaper. His obviously with the U of I, and I remember talking to him about just how fortunate and lucky you felt to find that home as a young writer when you hadn't yet developed your own voice strongly.
Roger would always get kind of a little twinkle in his eye. I think he thought of himself as the Mark Twain of the greater Champaign-Urbana area, especially if he found out that someone had either attended school there or spent a little bit of time there or knew someone. He'd then drill down. Well, where did they live? Did they know this person? Did they know about this? I mean, he loved getting into the history of it and just, the lore of the area. He loved that and was very proud of it.
Roger and I had always talked about presenting something in a form so that you could get people together, because we always thought that films should be seen, that they're most enjoyed when they're seen on a big screen and in a communal atmosphere. For years we had talked about having something, not necessarily a film festival, but film events.
Why did Ebertfest end up at U of I instead of Chicago? Well, there's many answers. One is the Virginia Theater. It's fantastic. It's a fantastic place to see a film. It's one of the best places to see a movie in the state and probably the Midwest.
I will tell you, one of the reasons that the film festival is still there, because there was a time when some people said, oh, you should bring the Ebertfest to Chicago. Roger and I both liked the fact that the film festival was, number one, at the Virginia Theater. We wanted everybody who attended the festival to see the same film at the same time, have the same conversation in the Q&A afterwards. In between the films, to go out on the plaza outside of the Virginia Theater where they could eat and sit and talk, to have a more contained festival.
So many people in this community are passionate about film, and I think so many people are passionate about film because they get to see it up close. They get to interact with people who are really creating at a really high, impressive level. And for 1 week every year, Ebertfest, film is absolutely the most important thing in Champaign-Urbana, and that's so exciting. And I think that's really allowed kind of this culture of cinematic appreciation to grow here, which is really cool.
It is a phenomenal way to watch a film. And it's very comfortable, actually, and you just feel like you're going to be in a special place for a very special event.
HAL 9000, the computer from 2001, says I was born in Urbana, Illinois, and he names the year. And so they decided to have a birthday party for HAL 9000 at the university. And so Roger brought in Sir Arthur Clarke by satellite from Sri Lanka.
Hello. Mr. Clarke. The best.
It was just sort of a joyous event, but it was supposed to be a one-off. It was so successful that the university asked Roger if he'd like to start a film festival at the university and continue this. And we discussed it, and he said yes.
The festival started with the idea that it's the Overlooked Film Festival, right? And that always was a very flexible definition, from my understanding, even in the early years before I started going in 2007, 2008. Overlooked, yes, but also some classics that Roger just happened to love. And really now, the festival's kind of a wonderful mixture of a little bit of both those things.
What I remember about Ebertfest was its start. I remember when it first came along and how extraordinary I thought that was, that Champaign-Urbana was getting its own movie festival, and that directors and stars and behind-the-scenes people were coming to talk about those movies on the stage. And I also thought its focus was unique. Most of the movie festivals, as you probably know in this world, are about the latest greatest, what's trending, what's happening now, what's going on in the independent film movement. And this was different. This was tied together by some different ideas. And of course, when it first started, it was really focused on things that Roger thought were underappreciated. And I thought that was a great idea to have for a film festival.
Roger said, if I do this film festival, let's call it the Overlooked Film Festival, because I would rather call attention to films that hadn't been seen widely, or films that I thought deserved to, maybe some people hadn't heard of them at all, or genres such as black and white movies or silent movies that people don't get to see at all these days. A few years later, some of the directors and some of the producers said, we don't know if we like having our films called Overlooked. So we were thinking of another name for the festival, and I said, just drop the Overlooked, and it's just Roger Ebert Film Festival.
It's hard to describe for people who haven't been to Ebertfest, because it's not like any other festival I know. You're in the Virginia Theater, you're in Roger's dream living room, and he's showing you the movies that mean something to him.
Roger was just such a good interviewer, and Chaz used to kind of herd the kids up. They'd let children come up onto the stage and ask questions, and she was herding them around so they wouldn't fall into the orchestra pit. But, a little child I remember said something about, I didn't quite understand, this was Children of Heaven, I didn't quite understand the end when the children have their feet in the fountain and there are goldfish going between their feet. And Roger said, I didn't understand that either. And then someone in the audience raised their hand and said, oh, I'm Iranian, I know about that. And he asked her to come up on the stage, and she said something about, I can't remember exactly, but it meant all's well that ends well and there's joy.
Seeing Nina Paley's Sita Sings the Blues was overwhelming to my senses. To see an animated film done in that style, so huge on the screen, and the music was so incorporated into it, and then when it hits the point where I guess the bridge of the movie, where it kind of goes from the two parallel stories to the one crazy little breakdown, seeing that on the big screen, you could feel the audience's energy of everyone being in absolute awe of what this person had done, with, of course, a special significance because Nina is a, Urbana alum as well, and now lives here again. So I'm sure there were a lot of people in the audience that had an actual, very personal connection to her. That one, you could really, really feel the energy.
I prefer going to something like Ebertfest, where we're actually celebrating movies that are available but probably haven't been seen by a lot of people, which I think is pretty great. I mean, a couple years ago, Bronx Tale, Chaz Palminteri, which is 25 years ago, and is a terrific movie. And that was a classic example. Now, Chaz Palminteri is a pretty well-known actor and filmmaker, but he told me on stage he had never seen this many people seeing his movie, and it was 25 years after it came out. I think that's a cooler use of a film festival and a more exciting experience to be part of.
To have this in your hometown and to be enjoying it with 2,000 other people who love movies like you do, and then to see all these famous directors and actors and producers and film critics out milling around with you. I mean, I think other than having George Clooney appear, it doesn't get much better.
You know what else I love? I loved when Roger walked out on stage to the podium to welcome everybody. People always gave him such a great ovation, and it was so heartfelt. And that's something I loved, and I love seeing that, because someone had the foresight to film a lot of what happened at the festival, and I love seeing him.
I can only imagine the emotional turmoil Chaz went through in overseeing the festivals through Roger's illness, and then so quickly after his death to put up another festival. And now a couple more after that, it's a different phase of everybody's life. But Roger's legacy is still guiding the thing. I mean, Chaz and Nate Cohn and many others are putting this together very skillfully every year.
I can't tell you how impressed I am by the way this festival has continued, that starting with Chaz, but then with all the organizers down there in Champaign-Urbana, who could have said, you know, especially when Roger got sick, we need to worry about Roger. Why don't we suspend it for a couple of years? Why don't we put it on hold? And then if that had happened, I truly believe it would have continued, but it would have been much smaller. It might have been a one-day thing. And there was this group determination, I think fueled mainly by, love and respect for Roger, where they were like, no, we're going to make it better than ever every single year. We're going to continue this tradition. And if anything, I think Roger would be pleased to see that it just continues to grow. And part of it is, I think, because people want to honor his legacy and think like this would have made him so happy. So I was blown away by the effort and the amount of time that people spent making sure that it just kept continuing and actually growing.
If there's any thread that seems to run through all of the film selections and then the actual experience of Ebertfest through all these years, of the 17 years of the festival going into its 18th. It's a kind of humanism that I think was present in Roger Ebert. It's there in his writings, you can see it. He's just a very humanistic thinker, very loving, very open, very critical of cruelty. And I think that his interest in these films, which are from all sorts of genres, all sorts of languages, all sorts of ages, it ties those things together in that way, and it also infuses the experience of being here at the Virginia for the festival. And Chaz has been amazing at carrying that sense of this thing forward. That's there in her public pronouncements. It's there in the way she greets the audience when she's here every day for all the films. It's very much there in the selection of titles. And our relationship to her is a very warm one. She's greeted like an old friend when she comes to the Virginia. And it's great to have her carrying that spirit of the festival forward when she goes on stage each day.
Is there any reason not to have the film festival? As long as we can still put on an interesting program with interesting films, bring interesting guests, and provide some value to our audience and to the community at large, we'll continue to do the festival. We did like driving home, the process of driving home, so we could debrief each other on what we thought worked at the festival, what we thought didn't work. And I was going to bring down my little booklets. I have these little booklets where I would take notes. If Roger was driving, I would take notes. And then later, sometimes I would drive home and he didn't take notes. He was Roger Ebert. He didn't have to take notes. So I have a list of the movies that we would talk about that we hadn't shown, but we knew we wanted to show one day. So I still have those little booklets that I used to take the notes in. And some of the movies that we're showing this year for the 2016, our 18th Ebertfest, are some of the movies that were in the little booklet. And I think that Nate Cohn also kept notes of movies that Roger wanted to show. And so we have, between my notes and Nate's notes, we have lots of movies that we can still show that we knew that Roger had approved of.
So Nate Cohn is the festival director and is truly instrumental in putting the entire programming piece together. He's been really helpful bringing me along and helping me along the way. Living in Athens, he actually is not around that much. I've only been able to be in the same room with him a handful of times so far, but we talk 2 or 3 times a day. We email about 200 times a day, and thank God for technology, because we're able to stay in constant communication and be able to make sure nothing falls through the cracks for the festival.
So the College of Media is very, very proud to be kind of the home of Ebert Festival. It's kind of a joint partnership between the College of Media and Chaz Ebert now. And of course, it was a great partnership when Roger was alive. And the real impact, I think, is not just necessarily with the college, but on campus and in the community. I mean, it was really built to be a community event, and the fact that the college can be kind of the impetus for that is a great opportunity for us. And it's bringing it to campus has been a very important thing. So all of the panels and those kinds of things are here, done on campus. We try to bring a little bit of the scholarly element into the films, and we have critics and we have historians and film scholars come and talk about it.
Champaign Park District leases the building to the University of Illinois to put on Ebert Fest. The College of Media is in the driver's seat, working with Chaz, working with Nate and others. But there are so many other people at that table. There are a lot of sponsors who are making it happen. There are a lot of community members who are volunteering, who are working here at the theater. There are restaurants that provide food for 50 volunteers per movie, some of whom are taking the week off from work to be here and work the festival.
Volunteers are, I think, what helps Ebert Fest run smoothly. Mary Susan was amazing, continues to be amazing, and Casey's doing an amazing job too, but they can't do it alone.
There's so many things that happen in those days and even hours leading up to a screening that's part of Ebert Fest. Oftentimes, James Bond, the projectionist for the festival, he'll bring so much equipment to the projection booth as part of his work here that we actually have to load it in by crane. And that happens in the days leading up to the festival. It's not under the cover of darkness, but it almost is. And there's so many things that take place behind those closed doors. There's frenetic activity leading up right to the moment that we open them and let in the public.
I think the future of the American Film Festival circuit is going to rely increasingly on festivals the size, roughly, of Ebert Fest. When you look at how the True False Documentary Film Festival in Columbia, Missouri has grown a little bit, but sort of cautiously, not become huge, but just big enough to be secure for the next season. I feel that Ebert Fest is in that same position. People love going back. Attendance is not waning. It's doing well, and I think the close involvement of U of I makes it all feel like the educational component makes perfect sense. People go there to remember why they love the movies and to learn something new about them from, in many cases, the people that made the thing they're going to see at 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock or 7 o'clock that day.
I think the encouraging thing is that a lot of people still love the communal experience of going to the movies. I often tell parents when I give speeches, because they're like, because young people still do go to the movies, and I say, they're not only going to the movies, they want to get away from you. So, like, a lot of young people just don't go to any movie just to get out of the house when they're 15 or 16 and it becomes a habit. So that's still encouraging to me, but things have changed completely, and what drives me nuts is when people say that it's, they don't worry, they're just going to see Gravity or Avatar on their phone, or, The Revenant. I'll just watch it on this screen, and you want to just say, you can't do that, that should be against the law.
But I think the way we view film at the Ebert Festival will remain pretty much the same, because there's really nothing else like being in the Virginia Theater, this old movie theater, which was, one of Roger's childhood places, that we go and 1,500 of us sit and watch the exact same film. It is an experience like no other, and I would hope that we would never change that. However, I will say that as we look at our students and how they come to school and the demands that they have in terms of how they consume media, certainly the way we deliver our own media is changing, and we're adapting to what they want. But I'm hoping they still see the value of what it's like to have that one experience of just watching a movie with hundreds of other people in a theater setting. And so we're doing this Ebert Fellows piece where 3 students each year are chosen for a program to learn how to write criticism. And they're producing work that is work that Roger would have wanted them to produce, and then they'll be covering Ebert Festival.
Our main goal with the 3 Roger Ebert Fellows this year is to simply cover the living hell out of this thing from as many surprising angles as we can, and then give people a reason to check in on the results of that coverage during the festival, because that helps give the whole thing kind of a real-time sense of context, and really what you want when you're reading about a film festival in progress. You just kind of want to know, what's it really like? What was the one thing out of that post-screening discussion that meant something to me?
To get the kind of atmosphere that you get at a festival is one that I think people sort of crave, because you can have these giant monitors at home, and you can have a good sound system, and you can watch it by yourself. But I think the communal aspect of watching movies together with an appreciative audience, you don't see people taking out their phones at Ebertfest and looking at screens or talking during the movie.
Roger understood and really embraced mainstream movies, but if you sat down with him and started talking about stuff, you'd immediately start getting into Werner Herzog territory, and then, who's a very well-known filmmaker, but then even, kind of a little bit more esoteric stuff. He was, I think his real passion was for the smaller films, for the underdogs, for the champions. Those were the movies, when we would talk about the show, we knew we were going to review Spider-Man, we knew we were going to review Superman, but then we'd talk about the fourth and fifth slots, and he'd be like, this is a documentary we need to talk about, or this is an important foreign film that needs and deserves a bigger audience. And I loved how he used his platform to, let more people know about work that they might not have known about otherwise.
As I look back through our list, I saw how heavily male our guest list was with directors and how heavily white they were. And I said, we could do better. I am talking about it and writing about it, and I'm in a position to do something about it. So let's do something about it. So this year, I sat down with our festival director, Nate Cohen, and said, let's see what we can do. Let's improve what we're doing at the festival. Let's not just pay lip service to this. Let's actually invite people who will bring something different to the festival.
We have director Paul Cox flying in from Australia with film Force of Destiny. He's been to the festival, 6 or 7 times now, so the audience will love to see him back again. We have Rebecca Parrish coming with her documentary Radical Grace, so I think that will be really exciting to see.
It's a blazingly original piece of work, Crimson Peak. I mean, just visually alone, it's stunning. I had no idea that was the first film that had been announced, and if people haven't seen it, you are in for a ride you will not forget.
One of the guests I'm so happy we're having is Casey Lemons, who did Eve's Bayou. Roger would be ecstatic that we are inviting her to the festival.
We're excited to introduce Renee Baker and the Chicago Modern Orchestra Project and think that they're going to have a wonderful show for body and soul.
One of the films this year at Eberfest is Blowout, the Brian De Palma thriller. This is a film that even if you like it, you probably, chances are, have not seen it in a long time. And when was the last time anybody saw it in a good print on a huge screen? Decades. And that's the definition of the value of Ebertfest.
The theater itself lends something to this event. And again, it goes back to that question of, is it more fun to be racing around to a bunch of smaller theaters or be home in one big, larger space where you can just totally devote your attention to what's going on? I think with the Virginia Theater, you've got something that's fairly lavish. You have something that's been well cared for, it's been well restored, and it's a very comfortable place to spend some time with friends watching a movie.
Another thing I'm so grateful for is that sculpture of Roger in those chairs in front of the Virginia Theater. And when the sculptor was creating, we went back and forth as to whether to put Roger in one chair by himself or put him in a chair with chairs on the side, and we decided to go with the 3 chairs because not just so people could sit in them, although that's what it's turned out to be, but that it seemed more like a movie theater. And now I am so glad that it's there and to see how people interact with the sculpture, because they do sit in the chair and they do want to sit next to Roger, and we decided to give him the thumbs up pose, and people like to sit next to him and do their thumbs up too. And it is just beautiful. It's beautiful to watch. It's a beautiful way to celebrate and honor him being, in his hometown. And I just think I'm so grateful that it's there.